you can see where people are like, if they want to spend that kind of money, you'll get to that level and it becomes the luxury package. But I just caution you, especially with breeders and live animals, but anybody starting a new business, if you price things lower, those people will have less expectations for you, which is okay in the beginning, because those people, anything that you do that's above and beyond what they expected will wow them.
Welcome to the Wear, Wag, Repeat podcast. I'm Tori Mystic. As a dog mom lifestyle expert, blogger, and business owner, I love talking to other women in the pet industry and sharing their advice with you every week. Sit, stay, and listen to the latest episode. In this episode, I'm talking to dog breeder Julie Swan. She's passionate about German short-haired pointers and matching families with dogs that make a positive difference in their lives. After accidentally getting into dog breeding years ago, Julie has immersed herself in everything she can learn about the health of the dogs and how to grow a successful business in this pet industry niche. She now runs a podcast called the Honest Breeder Podcast. One of the most interesting topics that she shared on her show, and I wanted to talk to her about today, is pricing. She has such insightful stories about how price can affect the customers that you attract and the perceived value of what you are selling, even if that is something priceless like puppies. Of course, talking about breeding, we touched on the adopt, don't shop movement and suggested an updated tagline. Plus, we also took a little doodle tangent over to Doodleville, so I hope that you enjoy listening to what Julie and I had to say. Let me know what you think about this episode by leaving a review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I am proud to have one of the most reviewed pet industry podcasts with over 85-star reviews. Your opinion really matters, and leaving a review just takes a few minutes. Here is what Jessica Bay of Templates for Pet Bros recently wrote in her review. Jessica said, "Perfect for dog moms. One of my favorite podcasts. Tori is a wonderful host and always brightens my day with her positive attitude. A great resource for dog moms who run dog-inspired businesses." Thank you so much, Jessica. So if you haven't yet, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and you might hear me read it out on a future episode. But for now, let's dive into today's episode. Julie Swan is a dog breeder and dog breeding business strategist. She is the founder and CEO of the Dog Breeder Society, a monthly membership and community for dog breeders looking to build an integrity-based, profitable dog breeding business that they love. She's the host of the Honest Dog Breeder Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the honest truth about breeding dogs, as it is not all rolling around in the grass with puppies, even though we wish all of our jobs were. In her home life in Southern Arizona, she breeds German short-haired pointers and rat terriers. She has a daughter and a son that she does homeschool with, and she is supported by an amazing and terribly patient man. On weekends, she's out with the dogs, cleaning kennels, hanging out with the kids on bike rides, or snuggling up for some homemade popcorn to watch a good Origins movie. Hey, Julie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. I always love to have another podcaster on, and you're starting a new membership community, which I love as well. So I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. But what's kind of cool is I hardly ever have breeders on the show, even though this is a pet industry show. There's just so many things that people can do in the pet industry that I haven't had a lot of breeders on. So I'm really excited to have you here and share this, integrity-based, super honest, just wholesome approach that you have.
No, I appreciate it. I know breeders are kind of on the black market when it comes to the whole dog world. And so, there's always that tension with some people, but I appreciate you having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
Right. It almost feels like a controversial topic to talk about dog breeding, but dogs have to come from somewhere. And so we might as well educate people how to do it honestly and safely and healthily and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I always feel people deserve to have a healthy dog with a good sound temperament that they don't have to worry about. And the only place to get that on a consistent basis is through a breeder.
Right. And also, just for everyone listening, I know we're kind of just like diving in here, but I'm just excited to talk to you. I was listening to a bunch of your episodes of your podcast, and you hunt with your dogs. I'm not with your terriers. Do you do any kind of like ratting and stuff?
I haven't yet, but it's mostly because it's sparse out here. But I will say that Bill may or may not collect old vehicles, and I may or may not use my rats to keep the engine wiring cleared up. So we don't have a rat problem. So that's cool.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah. So you actually are, breeding working dogs or sporting dogs that have, an extra purpose for some people. And it's an important thing to provide. So tell us, let's go back in time. How did you get into dog breeding?
Oh, it was horrible. I had no plans for it. I was a city girl, and I moved out here with the Army. And anyway, long story short, my ex-husband and we didn't do anything at a normal pace. Like it was like, hey, yeah, we'll just go start it. And so I ended up with we had our house on 5 acres and immediately had horses, chickens. We were looking at getting turkeys. We had goats, and we were looking at adding pigs. And he was an avid redneck from Mississippi. So he was like, oh, I got to get a hunting dog. And I'm like, oh gosh, breeding dogs are so expensive. I don't know if I want to do this, And then a friend at work ended up having one, and he knew we were interested. And he just walked up to us in the parking lot one day at work. And he says, I have to go live in an RV on my son's property in Missouri. I have 2 German short hairs, and that ain't happening. Do you want my stud dog? And I was like, sure. No idea what I was getting into. Total idiot. I had a 6-month-old daughter. What was I thinking? This dog was crazy. So anyway, we had this fantastic dog buster, and he pushed me to my limits. I mean, I was borderline, never thought about getting rid of a dog, but I was on the fence with this dog. And then we crate trained, and I was like, oh, okay, we can handle this now. And after we kind of got boundaries in place, and I stepped up my game a little bit as a quote unquote trainer, I am not a trainer. We at least had a flow, and he was just the best dog. I mean, my little girl, she could ride on his back. She could climb all over him. She grabbed him in every area. And he was all like, hey, can you get your puppy? And so he was just a fantastic dog. And I thought he looked good. But I didn't really know, I'd been breeding goats. And then one day she came out, and she comes up and she says, I'm interested in some of your goats. And as she's walking up, she sees Buster run around the yard. And she goes, that's a really nice dog. And I was like, I think so. She's like, I breed Dobermans. He's really nice. You want to breed him? And I was like, I kind of thought about it, but I never really did anything. And she said, well, I think he would be of quality to breed. And I was like, okay. And that just kind of set that bug in my head. And so I ended up contacting his breeder, talked to him about the whole shenanigans. And I realized the guy kind of had ulterior motives when I visited him a week later to get his papers. And he sent me home with 5 dogs. So needless to say, I fell into breeding really fast.
Oh my gosh.
I do not recommend it. I do not pitch that, but I didn't have anyone. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't really have anyone. That girl was very helpful in a couple of things, but Doberman's short hair is not really the same thing. And so anyway, so long story short, as we move forward, I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with giving people what Buster gave our family. And that was my whole goal in breeding. And so that's what started it. So that's where, I am today. And I want to give people that perfect family hunting dog so that they can make all the memories that we have with Buster.
Right. That's a wonderful story. And I love how you pointed out that you just kind of fell into this by accident, but it sounds like you guys kind of were easy to convince to fall into things.
We were not the smartest. I'll put it that way. I feel like I'm much better now.
Wiser with age,
There you go. I got a couple
the plus side, I guess. Yes. But like you said, there weren't really resources. There wasn't a dog breeder society, dog breeder podcast. None of this stuff existed. And so you just kind of had to wing it, I guess, and figure it out as you went along.
I did. Yeah. I was winging it like no one's business, like taking like goat knowledge and trying to apply it to dogs. And like, that's not very good. And then I would go on Facebook groups. I figured out that there were some Facebook groups and they were awful. Breeders are so mean to each other in Facebook groups. And, you get in there and they'll be like, well, they don't do it like I do it. So clearly they're a backyard breeder. Well, there's like a million ways to skin a cat. And so I just realized like, as long as you keep the well-being of the dog and the well-being of the family that owns the dog in your mind, then as long as you run all your decisions through that vetting process, you're usually not wrong. And there's a lot of options and ways to get it done. And so I started to have this like more open mind to it. And then in 2016, I had a terrible thing happen. We had puppies that like I had 20 puppies on the ground, 3 litters, and I had sent puppies home. We had just had this big rainstorm. I'd sent a dog all the way to Alaska, which is pretty far from Arizona, right? And all of a sudden my puppies started getting lethargic. They stopped eating, they stopped drinking, and some of them started to die. And I just was like, I don't even know what's happening. And my vet was testing it. She's like, it's not parvo, it's not coccidio. We don't know what it is, but it's not working. So I'm like calling people. I'm like, hey, if your dog starts doing this, like you need to get them into the clinic right away. I was sending people back their money like left and right. And we finally figured out it was Giardia, which is like, you may have heard of Montezuma's Revenge, but it's the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Bacteria in the water. Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's a protozoan and it sucks. And it latches on in those GI tracts and those little puppies. They only have like 48 hours of resources. And so we found out that the rain had brought it on because the puppies that had gone home before the rain didn't have any problems. And the ones after did. So anyway, long story short, I lost 8 puppies. And thankfully, none of the puppies that were already with people died, but I lost them. And I just went through this whole time of just, do I even deserve to be a breeder? Like I brought these things and these babies into the world and I didn't follow through. And I almost got out of breeding at that point in time because I felt so responsible. And then I got thinking, and this little voice in my head said, if you don't figure this out and share this knowledge, then you let those 8 puppies die in vain. And I said, okay, like I can't do that. So I figured it out. I spent hundreds of hours on the internet, like looking at things, understanding it, trying to understand everything I can about this stupid thing. And I finally came up with, go figure, oregano oil kills Giardia as long as you catch it relatively soon. And so I was able to create a mixture that you could dose orally in a syringe, no needle, of course. And it cured it. And so I have not lost a dog to it since. And I just, I realized that given my business degree, because I did go to university for business and my love for this dog breeding, I knew that I could bring those things together and I could help breeders do what I was doing and build that program that they wanted. And so it took me a couple of years to really get my feet underway and maybe rotate men because Bill's a lot more supportive. And, and now I'm finally in a position where I can help other breeders.
It's just, I think it's the passion for these pets and for these animals that leads us all to do what we do, because, everything, everyone who listens to this show and who's part of my world, I know that everything that we do, we're trying to improve the lives of pets and their people. Yes. And, I definitely hear that in your story too. And, it's not just the breeders and the puppies, but it's like all the families that your dogs go to. And then the people who meet their friends who meet the puppy when they come over. Like, it's just, you're reaching like tens of thousands of people. I don't know if you know this.
Yes. Well, at the end of the day, it's like a domino effect because, the last thing I would want is to sell someone a puppy and they take it home and it changes their whole life negatively. Now they don't invite friends over because they're afraid of how the dog acts. Now they can't walk through their door without, the dog throwing a fit. So it's so important to make a dog that improves people's life, because when those people's life are improved by that dog, they give the dog the world. And that's the best way to guarantee quality of life for your puppies is to take care of your owners.
Although I love what I do, it would be nice to spend less time working and more time with my dogs. Don't you agree? I always felt like if I could just get my website traffic up, it would open so many doors for me and my business. I used to spend hours posting my links all over the place. Until last year, when I immersed myself in Pinterest and tried all kinds of strategies to grow the traffic I was already getting from my pins. And guess what? In about a year, I was able to grow my site traffic from Pinterest 25 times. More traffic means more consistent sales in my online shop, new email subscribers daily, and now I'm earning income from ads on my blog. It's all about working smarter, not harder, and I'll show you exactly how in my brand new masterclass, Pinterest for Petpreneurs. After you complete this course, you'll have a system to use Pinterest to grow your website traffic, your email list, and your pet industry business. Explore the 6 lessons and bonus offers at wearwagrepeat.com/courses. Enroll today so that you can be a part of the live Pinterest profile audits that I'll be doing for students this month. Get all the details at wearwagrepeat.com/courses. Well, and so I think this is maybe a good transition to a topic I wanted to ask you about, and we can talk more dog stuff, but
sure.
to talk the business stuff for a minute. You have a really great podcast episode that I was like hooked on about pricing and how your pricing can really attract the right customers or the wrong customers, and sort of the perceived value in certain things. And I know it can be kind of a touchy and emotional topic to talk about pricing dogs because they're living things. But you broke it down in a really great way, and I'll just let you kind of take the mic and talk about it a little bit, because I thought this applied to everyone in every pet niche, not just breeders, but I just love how you described it.
Thanks. Sure. So I would say, to put people's mind at ease, the reason we charge for puppies, one is because yes, they cost money and they take time, and I want to be there to support them, and I need financial ability to do that. But more importantly, if people don't pay for something, they don't value it. And at the very core, that is why you price puppies. Having that said, the price you put puppies at is going to attract wildly different customers. And again, this goes with any product. The pricing is going to be very, very influential on who you're attracting, because you have those people that, maybe they say they want a German short hair and they really just want to check the box. Like they have the cool car, but it never gets mud on it. Like, or the truck, right? They say they go hunting, but really they go out and drink beer with their buddies. That might be the person you're attracting. And so they really just need a really sweet dog that's going to do well with their kids and look the part. And so, depending on what you're going for and who your ideal customer is, you're going to, the picture you put and the money that goes with it is part of that. I think one of the interesting things was when I first started breeding, I priced my puppies very low. They were at like $500. I had no idea like marketing, and I didn't know where to look to even base it. But I was like, okay, that sounds good. And I found that the people I was attracting at the $500 price range, they were just so good. They were good people. They were young kids. Like they usually wanted to, they want to get out, they want to do stuff. And they were the people that would otherwise have gone to the shelter and bought a dog, but they didn't because they knew they needed it to have some skills. Like it needed to be a hunting dog. Okay, cool. So they had zero expectations at that price point from me. Like they didn't even know I would ever be available to take a phone call from them again. Like that's the kind of expectations they had. It was nothing, Fast forward, you move into a little bit higher price point, which for my breed happened to be like around the $1,000, $1,200 range. Those people came to the table educated, like they looked at multiple breeders and they had questions. And I was like, cool, I like this, but they were willing to put the work in. They were the kind of people that would call me on the way to the vet and said, hey, we're going to the vet. What do you think about this? And I loved that because they gave me such good feedback, and it was educated feedback. They weren't willy-nilly. They didn't want to blame me for everything. Like we were partners in this relationship, trying to figure out the best way to take care of this dog. And then something funny happened. The market changed a little bit. I was like, hey, I'm getting a lot of people calling me for dogs, bump my price up. And all of a sudden I move into this higher price point, which isn't a whole bunch for German short hairs at like $1,500. But once I got to about $1,500, people stopped doing any research It was the strangest thing. They were like, I want the pretty dog. I'll pay for it. And I don't care. You tell me what I need. And all of a sudden they wanted me to do everything. And it, it really changes the dynamic. And they're the kind of people that like, they don't always want to sit and listen. When you get to that higher price point, they think just because they paid more money, they should be taken care of. And I suppose this applies, in photography, for example. So say you're running a photography business for pets. If they just say, I need to check the box and I need the most affordable package for this puppy. Okay. Then, you want to sell them on more shots. You want to sell them on quick and efficient. You're going to give them a list of things to bring and you're going to call it good. And it's going to be a good deal. You're going to talk about the value, right? And then if you want to get to that luxury high-end photography with pets, right? You're going to have this moment where you're like, I have all the stuff. I've got pretty collars. I've got little outfits. I've got different scenes. I've got it all set up. You just come here with a dog. We'll even do the grooming. Right. And so you can see where people are like, if they want to spend that kind of money, you'll get to that level and it becomes the luxury package. But I just caution you, especially with breeders and live animals, but anybody starting a new business, if you price things lower, those people will have less expectations for you, which is okay in the beginning, because those people, anything that you do that's above and beyond what they expected will wow them. And they're going to be great people for testimonials. They're going to be great people to give you honest feedback. And they're going to be blown away by the service you provide. And I love that because it's such a great way to get your feet wet in any business. And then eventually you can move up. And as you get better, then, I don't think I've been asked a question I didn't have an answer to in about 3 years with dogs. And so yes, now I can handle those people.
Yeah.
But I could not have when I first started.
Well, I think it's just fascinating, like the whole psychology of pricing. I'm sure there's like 1,000 books you could read about it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But I think it sounds like that sweet spot's kind of in the middle. At least that would be my perception, of like these informed people who care, who appreciate all that you put into it, the quality, all the tests you have to do, all the vet appointments you have to go to, all the things.
Right.
Because, I think a lot of people don't know what goes into breeding. But then you do get like the rich people who just expect everything to be done for them. Like, will the dog show up trained perfectly? Will it already know how to do everything? Right.
Exactly. It's very, very interesting. And I do think in essence, when people buy a dog, just like when they buy a vehicle, they are buying a lifestyle. And I think it's very important to understand that as breeders or anyone working in the industry, that we're not just selling things or products or dogs, we're selling a lifestyle. And you have to give them the experience that they want for that lifestyle. And so that's a really key. I found that when you're working with your customers, give them the experience they want in this process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you ever or often have to turn away dog parents who aren't a good fit for German short-haired pointers?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we do. And I'm actually, this is a part I suck at sometimes, but I'm all about like the little man or like the giving people a chance that other people wouldn't give a chance. And so I do end up working with a lot of people that have never had the breed before. They seem like they have good intentions. And what's really, really funny is that sometimes it absolutely is horrid and I get the dog back. And then sometimes it's the best thing ever. And they're the best dog owners because they did all their research and they really cared and they always talked to me. And so I still feel inclined to help those people, but I do get burned on it from time to time. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's a very high energy specific dog.
They're ridiculous. They're loving and sweet, but they're ridiculous. Like they're the kind of person that like sleeps by the door. And then when somebody knocks on it, they're like, oh, they probably brought me food, and they would let the stranger in. Here's the fridge, Yeah, they're their own special breed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you wish that people, because, there's this whole adopt, don't shop kind of thing, which I think is a very flawed slogan.
Yes.
Because it's catchy, I guess. But something that would maybe be more accurate is like adopt and shop from responsible breeders.
Right.
But that's not very catchy to say.
No.
Yeah. And so there's this whole adopt, don't shop. And I feel like it just, it just, no pun intended, but it like breeds this like animosity amongst people, against breeders. So what do you wish that kind of the general dog loving public knew about breeders?
Sure. Well, first off, I would say that our success is defined by your success with the dog, whether or not, it's not okay if it's just okay. Like, I want you to be wowed by the dog. I want that dog to change your life. I want those memories to be exactly what you wanted. And I don't ever want you to go to therapy because you got one of my dogs. Right. And that's important to me. Whereas I feel like success for a shelter or rescue is low inventory. And so ultimately their whole goal is to keep you keeping your dog and to get rid of the dogs that are surrendered to them. And so if those people are struggling with the dog, but it's not returned, it's not really their problem yet. And so I feel like what we use as success is greatly different. And so from a cultural standpoint, just the world of dogs, I really wish people would instead of saying, I need to get a dog now, they would say, hey, I think I should start looking for a dog. And I should find out what kind of dog will do well with my lifestyle, the personality, the temperament, the drives, because it's in the trainers I've talked to, 70% they estimate of problems with dogs. And the reasons trainers are hired is because the lifestyle of the family does not align with the drives of the dog. And so if the dog has, like I have a cattle dog and he's a control freak. If I'm irregular in my schedule, he loses his mind. He can't handle it. My GSPs, they could care less. But you see, so if I have an erratic schedule, I would be much better aligned with a German short hair, and that cattle dog will lose his brain. And so I'm not a good fit for a cattle dog normally. Right.
Yeah.
And so once people understand that it's not about the look of the dog and it's not just about checking the box of having a dog, then they can find a dog that really aligns with their household. And when you do that, being with the dog and giving the dog the quality of life becomes easy because it's natural. Right. That's why it's kind of easy when you get along like with your kids, right? Because they're a lot like you. So they have the same quirks and they have the same issues. And I can appreciate all my ridiculousness of my kids because it comes from me. So
right.
Same thing.
Yeah. I do wish that more people considered this. And I think here's another controversial topic, but the whole doodle craze of everyone getting every conceivable kind of doodle, they're not all very conducive to those people's lifestyles. Like I've thought of this the other day, is like hypoallergenic is not a personality trait.
Correct.
It's not a reason to get a breed, really, because that's just one very small aspect of who they are. So it's important.
It is definitely an interesting dynamic because you want those kids that have an allergy, or say their mom has an allergy and the kid wants a dog, but mom's allergic. So if you could find a way for the kid to have a dog, like I'm all about it. And so I understand that does narrow you to some options. And I know that it's not a perfect hypoallergenic, but it is a little easier. I get it.
Right.
And so I can't be mad at it, right? There's a need, the people want it. And if you can breed as a breeder, a consistent temperament and drive in a doodle, how about it? I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but yes, the public should understand that just because it's a doodle doesn't mean it's going to be a great fit for them. And we should be looking at other characteristics because honestly, there's a ton of doodles out there. So if you're set on getting a doodle for the hair, go find, the cross that's going to be a dog that aligns with you.
Exactly.
I was joking with a doodle breeder the other day and I was like, why do you think it works? Because there's so many people who don't have issues when they cross with poodles. Like, how is this happening? And we decided that poodles are kind of vanilla. Like they can kind of go with anything. And so they end up taking on the traits, personality, temperament of the dog they're crossed with a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ends up working out in doodle breeders' favors, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every cross out there is going to work that way. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think they're just so cute. They're all cute. I've never seen one that's not cute. They're all very cute. And so I could see, how people are sold on that aspect, but just because it's hypoallergenic doesn't mean that it's low maintenance by any means.
No. And I've heard some groomers that are losing their brains over some of these doodles.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure. Well, I didn't mean to get off on this whole tangent.
Good.
I love doodles, everyone, whoever's listening to this.
No, they're so cute. I could look at doodle pictures on Instagram all day. I swear. They're so cute.
Yeah. And I would pet every single one that I see.
Mm-hmm.
So in like the few minutes that we have left here, I want to ask you about your dogs because you told me how many dogs you have, and it is the most number of dogs that I think any of my guests have ever had themselves. Sure. So tell us about your own. They're your pets, right? But they're also kind of like your colleagues.
Yes.
Tell us about your pets.
I think they're almost like employees in a weird way. Yeah. But yes, no, I have like around 20 now. Okay. Like Bill came to me and I inherited some dogs, and I have that rescue dog that I had when she was a year old, who's got terrible hip dysplasia, bad elbows. She can't see, she can't hear. She's 14 and going strong. So we have those, I don't get rid of them. And then I have a giant breeding program, right? So I got 4 dogs right now in my rat terrier program because it's still growing. And then I have to count them. Is that bad? So I have 5 females and 3 studs right now in my short hair program. Yeah. And I'll be retiring some, and then I'll be bringing in some new ones and retaining some new ones. And it's a rotating thing all the time. Yeah.
And do you ever take your dogs out to see stud dogs in like other states and stuff? Or do you keep it kind of within your own house?
I'm kind of a control freak. So I like to have as much control as possible. I believe in natural breeding and natural whelping. I always feel like things got a little out of hand with turkeys when we started to have to do AI to make larger breasted turkeys for Thanksgiving. And so I don't know, for me personally, I think the margin of error is a lot less when I have my own dogs. I do natural whelping, natural breeding, all that stuff. And so that's what we do. So I do own all my own dogs. Now, occasionally, like right now, I'm in my 5th generation and I'm tying it back together, which is so exciting to bring my 2 maternal lines after generations of outcross back together and rehoning it. So I did place a couple studs that I bred in homes of buyers that I really trust. Like usually it's their second dog from me, and we've had a good relationship. And so we have a kind of like a co-owned contract where I just really want one puppy out of this dog. And so I'm just going to say, hey, we're just going to breed him until the dog I want comes out.
Yeah.
And so like, they're really, really cool with that. But for the most part, I'm not importing semen or anything crazy. Like I just kind of keep it simple.
It's a crazy world that you're in.
Yeah, it's a little nuts. I know. But some breeds have to be C-section. Some breeds have to be AI. And I just think that is so much, it's so much pressure on you. It's so much pressure on the dog. It's a lot. And so
it's probably a lot of trauma for the dogs.
I think it's when you get to a point in your breeding program where people are now expecting to get a puppy, right? And they're planning their life around it, then it's my due diligence to make that happen. And so the least amount of things I can have go wrong is better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, Julie, I could talk to you all day. I have a million other questions. But luckily I can go listen to hours of you talking on your own podcast.
Yeah.
But tell everyone where can they learn more about you? You also, we didn't really get to talk about it much, but you have your new society that's launching soon, and there's a wait list for that. So tell everyone where they can get involved in all of this.
Sure. The first thing, if you're interested in dog breeding, I do have a roadmap to dog breeding that you can download. It's at honestdogbreeder.com/roadmap. And it's basically the 12 steps to kind of get you started on how the process it is to get a successful breeding program off the ground. And so the Dog Breeder Society, what it is every month, it's going to be a deep dive with a masterclass into one aspect of breeding. And the design is that I know breeders are busy, but if we can dedicate 2 to 4 hours a month to improving our program, then we can actually build that breeding program that we love and producing dogs that fulfill our owners' dreams. And I think that's so important because we really need more well-bred dogs out there. And this is how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about this for so long. But in your society, I'm just curious because you are like one of the most tech savvy breeders that I've come across. Will you also be kind of teaching people about, the importance of marketing and some of the stuff that you do?
Absolutely. The unfortunate or bonus secret to dog breeding is that it's only half dogs. The rest of it is dealing with people and business stuff. And so given my background and my the need for it out there, I will be focusing heavily on the dog business side of it. And so it's everything from marketing, finding the correct customers, building a quality website. I think one thing people don't understand is like, especially with COVID, right? People aren't visiting homes anymore. They're not going to your kennel to see your dogs. They're talking to you on FaceTime. They're doing things.
FaceTiming puppies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you're shipping them across the country.
Yeah.
And so the odds of somebody actually coming up and showing up at my property becomes smaller and smaller the more my program grows. And so your website is your virtual kennel. And so if you don't have a good website, like people, they're not going to know, they're not going to get that feel from you. And so I love to build a website that attracts my ideal puppy buyer and also repels all the people that won't be good fits for my dogs. And so that's kind of the key. So we'll do all kinds of information on how to build your website and how to get your social media going and make all that work for you.
I love it. I'm excited. I'm excited to follow you and see it launch and all this kind of stuff.
Hey.
So thank you so much for sharing your corner of the pet world with us today and for being such a great guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
What did you like most about this episode? Find me on Instagram at @TMystic and let me know what intrigued you or what questions you have about starting or growing your own dog-inspired business. You can also screenshot this episode and tag me in your stories. I love to see who is listening out there. Some of the best conversations happen after the episode, right? So track me down over on Instagram or join the Wear, Wag, Repeat Labs Facebook group to connect with other dog-obsessed entrepreneurs. And as always, you can find all the links and resources discussed in this episode at wearwagrepeat.com/podcast. See you back here next week.